Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. How dare depression touch our species? After billions of years, a rare opportunity has been provided and we're being disturbed. Imagine it took you billions of years to do something, to draw a painting, and after billions of years, when you had the brush in your hand and you were in the middle of painting this masterpiece, do you know, suddenly the piece was disturbed. I find that in the psychology of the infant, there is no psychology. The infant's mind is literally being a recording of the whole room. You know, I have memories personally before language where I was just a kid in a room. There was no identity, there was no personality. I was sight in space. As simple as it can get. From childhood, you see, it's like the new infant doesn't have a sight, doesn't have a personality. It is communicated to, and the personality emerges. The child awakens into an individual self. You know, it's like, imagine we named a tree and we spoke to it and we, you know, moved it, and eventually it began talking and speaking, and it became its own component of free will. What I'm saying is that in the child psychology, I wondered, what is the first dualism? What is the first sort of morality that the child's mind entertains? And I find that it's a difference of temperature. We notice temperature. The child needs to be hugged. Children need to be hugged. You know, they need physical contact where they actually die. You know, you can say it is emotional. The child learns an emotional language, a language of touch and, again, temperature. But once the child is named, once the child is Jean Lacan, this French philosopher, says it's the most important moment in a child's development. That moment they look in the mirror and they notice themselves. You know what it's like? It's like we're raised in the world with the world pushing us. So we never realize we require to push ourselves. That there are some chairs the human being is sitting on that no savior can, pull you off. You have to just get up from that inner uh, landscape. What I'm trying to get to is pretty much we become an individual. That's a process. There's a sort of physical birth, and then there's the birth of the subject in the body, the birth of the mind to its own body. So you can say first the world is introducing you, the void is introducing you to a body, then the mind is being introduced to the body, and as the mind endures, the mind then becomes introduced to the unknown. And when you actually notice the reality of the unknown, it becomes a strange place because the way we accept the world is through a sort of I don't want to, I mean, I've spoken about it as an alphabet of image. Anyways, the roars of advancement is Mr. Within's algorithm to this problem that never needed to exist. That never was a problem. There were people like the likes of Napoleon. Many people may think Napoleon was a bit ruthless as a person, but he had an incredible character. He would say impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. The issue is not that human beings suffer. The issue is that they allow their inner space to be filled by their suffering. Because we're unconscious, it is easy to get pushed around. When a person doesn't know where they are or what they're doing, everything can influence them. You actually go with the flow anytime you don't know what to do. Everyone who enters a state of where the I doesn't know, where the archetype doesn't have familiarity with the landscapes of its consideration. There is no suffering when you don't know who you are. You only suffer if you know who you are and you wanted something. Epictetus says we suffer not from the events in our lives, inside our lives, but the judgments we have about them. That nothing has ever actually touched the mind. The mind is not an object. Everything has touched the body. Even the idea of ourself, even the idea of there being someone who is suffering, somebody who is weak. Why is it so easy for us to see ourselves as weak but not strong? Why is it easy for a person to see they're unlucky rather than they're lucky? What has the world come to that weakness is being honored first? What happened to the strength of the will, the strength of the changing force? In this world, it's not about being liked or disliked or anything like that. That's all the show. There are so many levels of life that are just transitory appearances where you are extracting meaning. Honestly, if somebody asked me what was, if sometimes I think like if there was beyond the veil of this current moment, I sometimes wonder if I was asked what was life like, I'd be like it was a very loud place, but there was a beautiful silence everywhere. We have accepted ourselves to be weak. Our ancestors had to wake up, and the guy back in the day was a blacksmith, was a baker or something. The guy was a baker, imagine, and he'd bake bread, he'd come home, and he's sleeping in his little tavern or whatever with his family, back in the day in a kingdom, medieval kingdom. And suddenly, in the middle of the night, he's like, is that an alarm clock? Then he's like, alarm clocks don't exist yet. What could that be? He sees outside the kingdom is at siege. So you see, when it becomes an emergency, strength comes out of nowhere. Where was that strength that whole time? This is why I'm telling people, go get a piece of paper and write down what's important for you. Because importance brings with itself energy. Anything, whether it's a person, whether it's an object, whether it's a subject, when it becomes important, the universe adds life force. I'll be honest, there hasn't been many moments, but there has been some moments of my life where I have communicated with forces. Not with people, not with entities, not with God, with elemental forces. I realized something remarkable. When you see a baby deer, you see that baby deer being born knowing how to run, how to walk. And I feel of course, the human being is different. The human being has to be taught how to walk, how to speak, and all this. It's not like a deer. What if the human being is, in some sense, as the mythological legends say, our father is the sky? And so we have a strange existential memory of familiarity with the realm. When I look at the concept of existence, yes, love and oneness apply. When I look at experience, you cannot just have a oneness and non-duality. Non-duality is not for an experiencer. It's for a moment of being. For a creature that does things in this life, a different song requires to be heard, you know? So we can obviously see back in the day, people had it rough. You know, they didn't even have public bathrooms back in the day. Can you imagine that? Like, like, excuse me, but people probably were just like, everywhere was messy. So I'm saying, like, from the inferior battles of civilization, we have now come to a superior time. And rather than being stronger than our ancestors, we have become fragile, weaker, sensitive. You know, and that has given us an advantage. It has given us a sensitivity of mind. They did this research thing where they saw there's two types of primates, you know, and there's a type of primates where they have where it's like where it's just a very patriarchal kind of system, and then they have another one where the men are passive, where the primates were passive. Now the issue was the aggressive ones survived longer, but the passive ones survived better with less violence, you see. And if we can find the perfect balance of, call it alpha and the beta, alpha and omega, whatever way you want to see it, whatever symbol you want to bless the world with, or bless your eyes with. We have been conditioned into weakness. We are not weak. You know, I remember seeing this thing. I got shocked, guys. You can go check the statistic. I'm not going to read it here, but you can go check it. It's like this ridiculous statistic. And they say mental health is one of the three big reasons that's leading to human lack of well-being. That it's our minds that are hurting us as well. It's not just our world. You know, a person can go into an event. Imagine a young child being very young and being pushed. And that child is pushed. It's a memory. A memory has been formed of it being pushed. Now, if that child cannot let go of that memory, it's going to go its whole life. And everybody comes to talk to that child, it's going to push them away, push them away, push them away. Why? Because what one moment in life where the child wanted to go and join the crowd, it was pushed back. I'm telling you, there's two types of evil on this planet. There is the evil that tried to be good first and was rejected. That evil is, in some sense, it can revert back to its original. Just like a picture, Photoshop picture, you can revert to the original nature. But then there is an evil that is plain. That's an evil that definitely, it's like either a louder order or a louder chaos in the room is going to come in. You see, here's the thing. People think that chaos is the teacher of order, you know, or that order, I would say, is the teacher of chaos. But let me tell you, sometimes the way karma is such a perfect, strange system of reality simulation, that I can tell you that imagine a bad guy, imagine a supervillain beats a superhero in a movie. We don't usually see that, but imagine you see a supervillain beat a superhero. Okay? Now, that supervillain has, imagine, beat the last superhero. There is no superheroes, and the supervillains win. And they have a supervillain civilization. Now, check this out. That the supervillain in power, the inferior chaos, its karma comes from the superior chaos, not per se only the superior order. The superior order is the karma for the inferior order. This is why chaos is an algorithm that it doesn't work in this plane of existence. Because superior order forgives, superior chaos doesn't. That means you see the evil guy in the show. The evil guy, after he's done playing with the enemies, he plays with his friends like they're toys. You see, that's the thing about evil. It doesn't see the world. It's locked in its inner realm. You know, and depression, for me, it doesn't exist. It's just a box you're putting on your head with a certain story you're telling yourself in the moment. Do you know how many ways your eyes are going to be open in this world? In how many ways they're going to look at things differently, and you're going to be a different person to yourself? You know, that's the nature of life. It's not meant to be a picture on a wall where we could look at it and cry all the time, you know? For how long? I'll tell you, even suffering gets boring. Even being weak gets boring. Not realizing you exist gets boring. Charles in the chat section says conscious attention is the gatekeeper. Excellent quote. Excellent sentence. Yes. Conscious attention is the 4 billion year old opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the thing. There was a reason I chose this picture. Because that is what is happening. Something unreal is burdening a real kingdom. Look at the picture. You see that mythological, what's the name? I know the name of this creature. What's the... It's not a three-headed dragon. It has this... Oh man, I gotta brush up on my Greek mythology. This three-headed extra size, like large, XX large, you know. Okay, it's not a minotaur, it's not a centaur, but probably it's going to have the word tar in it. It's a three-headed tar, let's call it. I don't know what kind of tar. You know, not minotaur, centaur. Maybe a guitar. Guys, I'm going to attempt a joke here. If a rock star was to believe in a mythological creature, it will be spelled like this. Oh man. Anyways, depression is an ideological landscape that is denying a new view of the outer realms. Immediately become aware that there is the inner realms. It's how you exist to yourself, how you experience yourself as a subject. And there is the outer realms, how the body is existing as an object. Learn to comprehend these two dimensions. Learn to forgive the world endlessly. Learn to endlessly forgive the world that doesn't understand you. Because let me tell you, sometimes it's good the world doesn't understand. You know, sometimes I have attempted things that years later I was like, thank God somebody stopped me from doing that. You know? Because everybody, this is life. Like, what do? We're a creature on a rock, 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Our whole life is based on action, based on activity, you know? And so if something becomes more important than our work as a planet, as a species, then we lose. You see, I keep bringing up this point about in other of my talks I've done this, where I've said something about Sun Tzu, the art of war, where when two generals fight, the general that is separated from his army instantly loses. So when generals are fighting, strategists, tacticians are fighting in the battlefield, do you know? They know, leaders know that the leader is the people. And if the people fight among themselves, that is the easiest kingdom to conquer. That means an angry person is the easiest person. Anytime for me, I play a lot of chess. Like I've played a lot of chess in my life. And I could tell you, when I see an angry person, it's like the person's brought their queen out too early in the game. It's hard to watch. We must be so excited, so inspired by an advanced civilization that when we look at our mirror and we don't see something advanced, we just want to advance it. If we have this basic impulse of people going around and being like, all right, this system hasn't been updated for decades, let me try, like that's the thing. We have to literally clean our world. We have to clean it. You have to literally wipe the inefficient language off, and a new era of language creation emerges. That will be the Renaissance. A creature that saw its limits objectively, but also saw the witness limitlessly. The limitless witness. What greater majesty than that? What greater majesty? What greater ultimate position in this plane of existence than to be the witness of how it's piloted? Some people, my attention relationship has changed. When I was younger, concentration was a thing. That concept made sense to me. But now there's no such thing as per se concentration once you realize the source of your own attention. And it's so simple. It's so simple that it's like when you look at it, when you try to contemplate it from the outer realms, it only goes back in. That means the light in the room is the God of the visible moment. For me, here's the thing. This world isn't a perfect system. And it's as if our bodies are imperfect instruments, but our minds are perfect canvases. Our perfect sheet of notes. And it's like the melody of the inner realms can never be 100%. I have tried. Do you know how many in these talks I have tried? The inner realms, there will always be a hidden component to it. Whatever man does, it's as if the world is more multidimensional than his beliefs. Because atomically, if we really were materialists, if we all really felt we were atoms, then there should technically be no personality, no war. No war. Why would atoms that are 99.9% empty fight? What is there to fight? There is an anger that is not anger. I would say it's honest rage. We are an artwork that was 4 billion years in the making and is not finished yet. And now, for the first time, think of it this way: the universe was the artist. The cosmos was drawing itself, and then it was like, all right, human being, I'm going to give you a small brush to draw a little bit of this giant painting I'm making. Do you know? Suffering exists because people don't see that the two sides of the coin don't have to be the same. You cannot expect your mind to be explained like a body. You cannot expect the body to be comprehended by just mind, you know? Reality is a massive movement, and it's the intelligence of it that we're trying to storify. For me, it's like, honestly, when it was like it was right there in front of my eyes, but I was so stuck into the social matrix or the cultural program that I never thought to question how the language I had accepted about the world was actually being the meaning of my life. This is why after some point I became so sensitive to language that any words that are unnecessary I don't use. That means I noticed there was a time where it was like I don't know, it felt like some sort of weird inner subconscious self-expression. This is before 2011, where I would share my misery, where I would share my suffering, and I felt, all right, I'm being emotionally vulnerable, it's a good thing, you know? And then I realized, no, like after some point you realize language is not something to be used all day. I don't use language all day. There's other ways the intelligence of the moment can move, you know. For example, like when I'll give you an example. When I wake up, silence. When nobody acknowledges me, if I live a whole day, even go to work and whatnot, and there's a sort of uh let's say in that group I'm in, it becomes a sort of, how do I say it? I don't exist to myself when the experiencer is just moving without interference. But any moment somebody calls my name, or in some sense, I'm wanting to do something in the moment, or there is some sort of personality-based moment, that's when I am individual. To myself, you might not know. I may sit here and say these, share my architectural blueprints of language, but I will tell you, there's been times where I have felt I don't exist. Not as a object, as a subject, just that it's not, existence is not something we can understand. It's something that it can't clarify, it can't justify itself, it just is. It so is that whatever you do, it still is. And energy is like that. And we don't realize it. We are at a phase in our species where we're comprehending energy as particles. There will come a time where we will see energy is coming from attention. And consciousness is rooted in soils we can't see. But the tree knows its own roots. It always does. You know, you cannot exist and not know what you are existentially, you know. Experientially, you may not know. Experientially, we use the system of language to comprehend things. That means I thought about it. I thought about that we romanticize. I mean, of course, romanticism was an incredible evolutionary leap for our species. But I'll tell you this, that I think about romance, like romance, but I notice we speak and we're vocal and we have language. Then I think about it, what if we were a silent civilization? What if we never made sound? What if we only had body language to speak to one another? No words, no thoughts, no names, you know? You can imagine some phase of evolution being similar to this. Imagine what it would be. Imagine right now people wouldn't speak words, anything. What would the concept of true love be in a silent civilization? It would just be caring for life's being. That means, honestly, there is a courage that comes to you when someone is important for you, you know? There's been moments where I've suddenly, when something's been important for me, I've had a strange, like, courageous might find me. Do you know? Sometimes it feels like it's a boldness against karma, you know? You know, it's like karma moves something in your moment and you look at karma and you're like, can you put that back, please? And karma's like, all right, man, sorry. In this world, there's nothing, there is no pocket to put whatever you grab or hold in. We are creatures that have been identifying with the visible components of the dimension. Even the defining of the dimension is strangely sub-visible, let's call it. Because imagination is like a private room. When I sit in the subway, when I sit in the uh, on the bus and whatnot, it's like for me there is I can honestly tell you that there is an inner realm. It's a room. It's a room every person has. And it's a room that once you step out of the inner realms, you actually get to live life. And that life is not lived with too much planning. It's just that you understand whatever you know in this life, there's more unknown. So you calm down from suffering's intensity. So the character stops whipping itself with negative context. The concept stops hurting itself with negativity. Why? Because what is negativity and positivity? They both require each other. Good and bad. You know, you got to know what bad, you got to have a reference point for what bad is to be noticed what's good. You know, the bad have to know what's good first to even be bad, to be able to break the rules. You know, they got to first know the rules. So technically, everybody is a law-abiding citizen in their inner realms because they understand the law. If you understand it, you're abiding by it. You know, if you don't understand the law, then you're not abiding by it. Now, the thing is, law also needs to understand people. People are understanding law, but law isn't understanding people. So there is a sort of hopefully revolutionary, like we're going to pretty much have like a global movement of philosophers go to law schools and transform what it means, what law means, you know, what the word means. Because what is the dictionary? Some dude wrote it. And we all think all the words in the dictionary are 100% reality. Yeah, if it was that easy, you know? We are treating the dictionary like our God. As far as I'm concerned, when people think about the meaning of life, language, they're worshiping language. Do you know, I was worshiping language until somehow, strangely, in 2011, I noticed something else was going on in the background. So for me, all of this whole notion that on the planet mental health is an issue, we don't even know what the mind is. How can we know if it has an issue? The mind isn't an object. The mind isn't like, you can't go to like a psychologist is not like a doctor. Oh yeah, you're sad. All right, take this medicine. What the fuck? What the fuck? Chemical solution? Then why are you a psychologist if you're giving a chemical solution? Do you know this? This angers me when I see that they are chemically finding a solution to psychology. Sure, cage the lion. It's gonna feel calm. You know, numb the person. They're gonna feel better. No, you cannot run away from this life because time is not running away. Time is chasing every person, and the only thing you can do is turn back, look at the hourglass, and in some sense hold it in your hand and start running. Like a footballer, you're holding the hourglass of time running through the space-time continuum, you know? Because what defines the human being is its progress. We are creatures that are measuring ourselves into a value system. Poetic, isn't it? Now look at this situation. Look at this wallpaper. Look at this picture I've posted here. These guys, if you looked at one of them and they're like, hey man, can you go kill that thing, that three-headed, oh my God, what is this? Let me Google this. It has something to do with Hercules or Perseus. What is this? Oh, Cerberus. It's called a Cerberus, the three-headed dog of Greek mythology. I mean, dog. Okay, maybe this dog is spelled D-A-W-G. So this is a three-headed dog. All right, guys. Cerberus. One of the most well-known, maybe the three-headed dog known as Cerberus. So this Cerberus-looking creature, you know. Let me write it down. So, these individuals, you ask one person, hey man, do you want to go fight this three-headed monster destroying the kingdom? The guy's going to be like, maybe not today, man. I'll think about it. Yeah. But when humanity's forces, that's the power. We have evolutionary built in us. For me, like back in the day, even though war was messed up, but that moment where there was a cavalry experience, imagine cavalry running towards something, you could even see the picture, right? That was a moment where you were seeing like human beings for the first time be like birds and flying rhythmically. That means one man, you can't change, you can't do much. 8 billion human beings, they go and fight the Cerberus, they win. 8 billion people looking at the global problems, and now with the ability of the internet right now, do you know? I'll be honest, we have reached a time where YouTube is one of the greatest blessings on this planet. Why? Because people can live a life where they are in some sense accessing global significance. That means YouTube is pretty much like different parts of a brain becoming one brain. Because the mystery of memory changes any fact. That means we got to realize, it's like if we say the idea of God is man-made, guess what? The idea of self is man-made. The idea of man is man-made. So technically, everything is made up of ourselves. We are building the world through our experiences. That feeling of 8 billion human beings, like cavalry, marching towards the most advanced civilization known to man. And if they come and say, why are you guys building an advanced civilization? We'll be like, just to see what it would look like. Just to see something. Or just to see the birthplace of the future smile. Because really that's life. If you stay idle, this may sound strange. If you don't care about yourself and you don't care about the world will live a life through you, whether you like it or not. But if you care about the self and you care about the world, and after comprehending its non-duality, after realizing the ripples of the pond can settle, it's okay to throw rocks in the pond because they will always settle. The ripples will always settle. That means for the Zen mind, emptiness was the beginning and the end. So life was just a mere play of forms, a dance of, dreams of eternal glory. An elemental dance, looking towards eternal glory. Because does it look like we are just matter? Honestly, I was thinking, imagine like in the future, we make contact with an alien civilization, a peaceful, advanced alien civilization, but they're all liquid. They're all jello, right? And imagine we had a negotiator. I'm thinking if I was there as a negotiator for such an event, I would probably go and upon finding a common language, a common point of contact of meaning of the inner realms of our species and the other, What we would do is, if the species was just jello and like these floating liquids, just this floating blobs of liquid, we would probably say, welcome to our civilization, we're also 70% liquid, you know and we'd start talking to them, and we start saying, you share with us our technologies and we'll design bodies for your liquid form, through nanotechnology. And then suddenly, uh, intergalactic business occurs. Good business. But I'm just saying, it's like this. That's the thing in life. So much of it is like a Tetris game, but it's like a Tetris game where instead of the screen being not moving and the Tetris pieces falling down, it's like that you are always going up. You're going. It's like, imagine the screen of the Tetris game went up as every Tetris came down. It's as if you never see where the echo of an action goes, but you see in that moment what the action was. That means if you are depressed, it has been easier for you to accept weakness than strength. You know, there was something I learned this honestly because I think I had the privilege of seeing third world countries that have problems that still, so like right now it's freedom of expression, in Western cultures. Now in certain cultures they're not even thinking of freedom of expression, they're thinking of freedom to live. Do you know that means it's like when I'll tell you, there is this mentality that the world is safeguarded. It's as if it's like the planet, different nations or different levels of this kingdom reaching to the clouds. The whole point of it is the king. This is how I know that the leaders of the planet. I mean, there isn't like leaders. It's 8 billion people's activity expressing all the time. It's like 8 billion minds and their intentions. And if there's 0.00 whatever amount of zeros percent chance that everything in memory in life is recorded, that means nothing is hidden. I honestly feel the future generations will have a technology that they will be, whether through their inner realms or outer realms. Through the inner realms, any person can. In your inner realms, it's a free time machine. But but in the outer realms, I don't know. In the outer realms, there will come a technology where they will tap into the memory of the planet. When they tap into the memory of the planet, not only will they see everything we have done, they will see everything we will access the mind of the planet. The mind of, honestly, it's not the mind of the planet, it's not the mind of the planet, it's the universal sector. Technically, a cosmos is the tip of the iceberg. The whole cosmos is the tip of the iceberg. We're honestly, in our evolutionary timeline, it was like, imagine the evolutionary chart. Then the next step is Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, and the world being like, nothing, Jon Snow. That's where our evolution has come. Where we are, at the night's watch, watching the night, to realize we are knights wearing watches. I don't know. So much of life is about how the moment holds itself and how you hold the moment. If you are simple and you realize your inner child never needed to be exiled from into the unconscious, you bring your inner child back from the unconscious into your conscious, which means you accept the simpler version of you. If you can accept the simpler version of you, that's literally a step before you can say when meditation stops. Meditation stops, like I don't know how many people know this. Some people may think, oh, my whole life I gotta meditate. No, that's not the case. You only can meditate, believe it or not, until there is no meditator and there's no meditation. The moment there's no meditator, there's no meditation. There's a moment the person realizes that just like how energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it can change from one form to another, the consciousness is the presence of the energy, And you can say what's in the consciousness is the form-to-form dance. So technically we are changing the world and we don't even realize it. Because I'm saying in the whole meditation stops when you notice the inseparability, as Swami Krishnananda says, the inseparability of the individual activity and the cosmic activity. When you realize there never was a microcosm and macrocosm, technically you have realized that light is in your eyes in an instant, and so is the world. Be free, for it all changes, regardless of what you think, regardless of how you move, regardless of what you do. This doesn't mean you shouldn't be a human being. This doesn't mean that we forget what the ancient Greeks said, to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world. That was the vision the elders of this planet have had. That they did not exist just for us to sit and be sad about our lives. Okay, they did not do this so we identify with mental illness. You know, I'll tell you, there's something scary, guys. For me, of course, I understand it to a very deep level. I've studied a certain literature on this. That's why I'm speaking so comfortably about it. But I'll tell you, there is something I've noticed. You see, for me, it was life was like it first appears as a playground, then it becomes a battlefield. You know, now if you as a human being grow up and life is, even though I say the inner child, keep the inner, don't exile the inner child, but if you don't have that transition where it suddenly clicks for you that the playground is a battlefield, then you don't become responsible. So mental illness equals irresponsibility of selfhood. You haven't, it's like as if yourself is an Iron Man suit. You can't move in this Iron Man suit properly, you know, and then you're going to I will tell you honestly, I think even psychologists know that it's time for a new angle on health. I think everybody has noticed this. I think we realize now more than ever that it's not just about taking care of the body, and it's not just about taking care of the mind. Both the body and the mind are being influenced by the world. So technically the human design will make sense and can extract meaning, and I think this will be the karmic remedy for many lives, that you realize that your body and mind are tools. And the purpose of a tool is to be used. And so perhaps little does everybody know that they are here to play their part in the symphony of manifestation, regardless of how fallen or risen you are. You know, regardless of if you think you're a good person, bad person, you know, you put a sticker of a happy face sticker, sad face sticker on yourself, you are neither. Language comes and goes. Chung Tzu said that thoughts come and go. Sorry, he didn't say thoughts come and go. He said thoughts are like leaves on a tree. As the seasons pass, your views and beliefs change. It's like, little do we know, everything is changing. That means if evolution is a gradual change, our beliefs are actually, there's no such thing. There's nothing to believe. It's strange. Because everything is changing, there is nothing to believe. It doesn't mean there's nothing, but it just means that even if there was something, the moment you hold on to it, it changes. I remember writing this story. It's something I'm proud of. It's the script I've written. I'm gonna hopefully make attempts of making it a film in the future. It's called The Paper Crown King. And it's this short film I wrote where what's happening is there is a king, there's a king sitting on a throne. Then you see there is the right-hand man, the most trusted person of this king. Then you see behind the most trusted person of the king, there's a knife in his hand, and he's very politely talking to the king. He's very politely talking to the king. Then he stabs the king. He kills the king. Do you know? And so he takes the crown by force. Now he sits there and everybody in the crown is shocked and he says like, I am king, I am now the emperor. And he takes the crown from the head of the king he that didn't deserve to die. He takes the crown from the true king and he sits there on the throne, and as he is wearing the crown, he's about to put the crown on his head, and the crown, exactly the moment it touches his head, turns to paper. Then everybody is shocked. Then the king is like, why is everybody shocked? Everybody is speechless. The crown becomes paper. The moment the crown touches the head of the king that wasn't a king. There is a karma for the artificial, and the karma is that they never were here. That's the cost of dishonesty. You stop existing to the self that is actually here, to your true nature. And what depression? We're on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Everybody should be freaking out and screaming, but somehow we keep our cool because we got class. We're a classy species, That means probably, if a meteor was about to hit Earth, probably if we had like a few couple seconds or something, I'd probably be like, all right, well that takes care of writing history. We don't have to worry about history anymore, At least we don't have to worry about suffering anymore when a meteor hits and the planetary opportunity is inactive. That's the most important thing. We got to instantly build sky cities, which are an evolutionary phase towards spaceship civilizations. And in my inner realms, I've envisioned one which I've never shared. I'll share it now. It's this vision I had, guys. It was one of the most fascinating structures of thought I have witnessed in my inner realms. And what I saw was, in outer space, this giant space station, which is designed like an octopus. Okay? And it's designed like an octopus, but where the head of the octopus is just the glass skyscraper civilization inside the glass. And every tentacle part of the circular tentacle part of the thing is holding a sphere the size of a planet, which is what is holding. Do you know? Oh man, I wish I could explain it. So pretty much I'm telling you, imagine there were glass orbs connected to the circular things at octopus's tentacles, and imagine that the whole head of the octopus was made of glass, and inside where the brain of the octopus was a skyscrapers of a civilization, right? And the tentacles of each of this octopus was like neighborhoods, planetary neighborhoods, you know? This massive space civilization, you know? And it was something that I can tell you, I look at everything and I could totally understand what the shamans were doing. The shamans were so smart. They were so ahead of their time. It's ridiculous. And it wasn't just the shamans, there were many mystical traditions, certain human beings who were designed to carry the signal in their cultural sphere. The universe is preparing us for its own greatness. That's why you should like the universe. The universe is a bit selfish, you know? And what's likable about that? As if there is something about selfishness where it could be, of course, cruel. But there is one thing about selfishness that at least it doesn't doubt itself. That means I've noticed moments where I've desired to get something, like literally, I don't know, like a watermelon. It's like, there's so much ahead that to suffer from the past is just, it's savage. If your past is, if you as a person, your past is bothering you too much, that's that you're living like our ancestors. You're living too primitive. You know, now we have moved to the era of advanced communication, the era where we are no longer worshiping language as if we didn't have souls. And what is the soul? The gift of the unknown through the knowledge of the realm to itself. A sky that loved the clouds whether they were there or not. A universe that saw us. That means I know, here's the thing, that for me, I don't even consider too much of an extraterrestrial narrative. In my science fiction, I do, but when I look at life, for me, I see the whole soul, the whole world as a sort of mind, one mind. So for me, this planet is, it is true, in front of me there's an atomic landscape, there's a physical landscape, but just because in front of my eyes there's a physical landscape doesn't mean the cosmos isn't alive. You know? Philosophers are pretty much, when the scientists can't see any further, you know, the enlightened society is like, all right, deploy the philosophers. The philosophers come in running like a SWAT team, you know, seeing the limits of physical reality and then wondering how the psychology can move what it sees before it moves. That is the advanced instrument we're carrying, where behind your eyes there's multiple moments. You know, you can remember your childhood, you can remember, visualize your future. Do you know? You can zoom in on memories, you can zoom out from them and see all of them as just a river. Do you know? But I'll tell you, the higher, if there are higher dimensions, if there is a chance, those higher dimensions are not conceptual. Language is on earth. Language is an event happening on earth. Beyond our language, there is an experiential communication with the universal sector. Every human being is technically having this, but it's so in their unconscious that in order to have human beings be conscious of this, we have to change literally the language. As Ludwig Wittgenstein would say, the limits of my language are the limits of my world. This is why the fear of seeing the new is the death of your future life. That means you either stay in the past, you keep the past alive, or you keep the future. You go towards the future. The future doesn't mean you forget the past. It just means that if the world deserves it, you do it. Doesn't matter if the person deserves it. When I try to calculate, believe it or not, the value of my individual life, I'm like, all right, just a set of elements. I'm a bunch of cells. The most advanced thing is just the communication. That means, what do my atoms have? Are my atoms special? No, it's like I'm just like we're all complex cells, you know, an incredibly complex, you know, cellular organism. So physically, the purpose of an organism is to just exist. It's like, what's the point of a candle being in a room? It's just to be there, you know, to be the light in the room, you know. But when I think about the opportunity, it's like I wake up not thinking life is good or bad, just waiting to see what design appears from it. And then I look at the design and I live the day. I live the day. I don't try to. It's like, here's the thing. You think the general, if he takes out his sword, he's done strategizing. That's the moment. Do you know? So there's times in life where you can, of course, be like an eagle again, flying in the sky, looking at the whole forest, comprehending the nature of reality. But then there's moments where you gotta actually, the eagle has to fly down, but and you know, kind of like pilot between all the different branches of ways that the world can be known to us. The most precious thing is to realize that you have to give a gift to your civilization, and little do people know it's the gift of you. That means if you can live as if the world, maybe you don't trust the world. Maybe you're someone listening to this and you're like, I don't like this system, Mr. Within. Why should I care? You know? Why should I care? It's cool, it's evil, it's messed up, it's fucked up. Why should I care for this civilization? And I'll tell you why. Because just because a child or a person, even in a relationship, does something wrong, doesn't mean they never deserve anything better after that. It never means that. That means the issue is we are focusing on what the enemy did rather than finding the strength of our friends. You see, forgive your enemy. Why? Because they will realize they have lost. I have this thing that sometimes, it's not something, it's something, natural for me, but sometimes when a person is very rude to me, it's like instead of me getting angry, the person just stops existing to me. Literally, I move on. So I can tell you, if you're a person who thinks you've been struggling with depression and that language has been some sort of architecture, you've been some sort of structure you've been inhabiting behind your eyes, let me tell you, throw that language away. Because as Lao Tzu says, you got to let go of who we are now to be who we meant to, and that's the game. Whether you like it or not, your cells are changing. The cells of the body change every 2 weeks. And when you think about it, it's like, what's the intelligence of the system? I feel like literally the body, like some parts of it I can control. Like I could raise my hands up and down, but I can't like the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, change the flow of my blood to stop like a poison or something. Some things must be kept away. You must forgive the world before it erases you. And of course, intelligence is very key. That means it doesn't matter if you're someone who's with this religious perspective or a secular perspective. It's like so many people are playing ideological costume games. For me, I'm a person who wants to build an advanced civilization, but I want to, in some sense, incorporate, but I want to build it through the eyes of a mystic. You know? Everything comes down to a design level. I'm not joking. That's knowledge. Knowledge is design. This is why intellectual the approach, after a while, it does have a lifeless component to it. The scholarly mindset makes you insensitive a bit to actually nature. That's why I feel only fools can truly walk the fields of intellect. Those who become certain, they become heavy. Imagine the intellect is like clouds you're walking on, and if you suddenly become certain and you think you know exactly how in this massive system, multidimensional system, where there's a sky we can't even see the end of, like what's up with that? I can tell you the secret of the truest life and the truest skill, and the way this plane of, if you want to communicate with the intelligence of the Gaian mind, you must find this is how it occurs. This is the algorithm. You notice something that you don't even notice you notice. Moments of joy and the Jungian synchronicity find you. Then you become introduced to silence and stillness. From silence and stillness, you get introduced to the intuition itself. You become inseparable with the intuition itself. And beyond that inseparability, for the first time, nature's will and man's will become one melody. They find themselves in one rhythm. And then there's no such thing as creativity. There's some people who they think, oh, I'm creative, I'm not creative. How hilarious. I think the world is creative. I think we're just getting tidbits of it, like antennas picking up signals from the moment. We have to usher ourselves into an advanced phase of communication. Our minds are our salvation. Very easy. It's like everything we need to build an advanced civilization is right here. The inner realms provide the blueprints. The outer realms is where the resources are. The only thing that is left is the free will to be one of the first human beings in history that attempted in their inner realms and outer realms to live in an advanced civilization. We will be the first who saw a kingdom where its edges was the cosmos. You know, it's strange. I thought about this idea, and then one day I started laughing intensely. I was like, oh my God, in the monotheistic tradition, man made a mistake and he fell to earth, do you know, from heaven. But then I thought, where did God make earth? Like everything was in heaven. God has made earth in where? God has made man where? I feel we have never fallen. Or you can say I think to honor Aristotle, the earth is in the heavens. Earth is in heaven. So if you seek heaven, you don't see heaven. In the same way that if I identify as a cult with the cultural program as an entity, or with just the ideological programs of my environment and ethnocentrism, do you know how little I would see from the world? This is why I'm telling you it's the most important skill to learn to be new to the moment, to be okay with the unknownness of experience. If you get comfortable with the unknown, the pressures of life have no container. So they have nothing to. It's literally as if like suffering passes through you. There's no one that suffers anymore. There's this story. Where I'm going to share some stories now, a bunch of stories. I think that's going to be a good rhythm. There were these grandkids, and their grandfather was sleeping, and they were mischievous. They were just like, trying to have fun playing around. And so they decide to pull a prank on their grandfather, and they go get a stinky piece of cheese from the fridge, and they put it on the mustache of the grandfather while the grandfather is asleep. Then the kids go and act like angels. And the grandfather suddenly, he wakes up, He wakes up and he suddenly looks around, and he's like, he sees these kids usually who are jumping around causing trouble. They're acting strangely nice. So it's like his intuition telling him something's off, right? And so he suddenly smells the room and he catches the smell and he's like, oh my God, I gotta get out of here. This room is terrible. You know, these kids have to, you know, their parents have to teach them more. And so the grandfather runs to the other room and sees the other room smells. He's like, what the fuck? He goes to the kitchen and he sees, oh my God, it smells there too. And he runs. He hates the smell. He runs and he goes and opens the door and he goes outside and he's like, I made it. I made it. You know, technically think of it as if he made it to heaven. And he's like, I made it. And then he suddenly realizes, oh my God, the smell is still there. And he falls on his knees and starts crying and says the world stinks. The world stinks, oh my God. You know, and the whole moral of the story was one tiny little piece of cheese made this guy think the whole world stinks. That's the thing. How dare depression touch your mind? That means it's like when it comes to the temple of your mind, yeah, be a bit assertive in asking people to take off their shoes. You know, complexity is aiming for infinitability. Simplicity is aiming for the serenity of the void. So if you as a human being sit down in this life and truly wonder about its dimensions, like a designer seeing a design that you have no opinion of, you're just looking at what it is, like opening a catalog. You know, you look at this world and you're like, okay, what's going on? And you start actually looking at things, you'll notice that everything, every phenomena you see, it translates into language. So, for example, when we define a tree, there is the color, there is the leaf, there is the branches, you know. Then there's the whole sky, the sun, and it's as if everything is interwoven together, you know. So the thing is, in language, because it's our masking of the world, because we're choosing to mask the world, that's how we get to see the world. So it's hilarious. Literally, what the psychology is doing, the psychology of the human being, is that before it actually sees another person, it's putting a mask on their face based on their past experiences as a recognizable pattern. Because I've noticed this when it's like, because people have different inner realms, when there's person A and person B, and let's say person A likes person B and person B dislikes person A, or let's say person B likes person A or person A dislikes person B or whatever, you know? Like both are possible. It's just that person A will look at person B and be like, I have no idea how you dislike whatever you see in this world, because we don't have each other's eyes. When you realize that, you liberate yourself into a responsible animal, because you become your own pilot. And it's the whole privilege of evolution. Evolution is not just for us to freak out and then die, you know. You know, you think like this world is here, this world was this massive, this, you think, I mean, honestly, if we become a depressed civilization, we were stupid and we deserve it. Because I'm telling you, you got to acknowledge what doesn't work in the system to be able to upgrade it. You see, they say the first stage is acceptance in order to change something. You know? That means it's like the parent is saying to the child, eat your vegetables, you know? And then the child's like, I don't want to. You know, denial, you know? And the parent is like, no, eat it. You know, it becomes an intervention. Everybody's like, eat your vegetables. You know, for God's sakes, you're ruining our lives. Eat your vegetables. You know? And that kid has to make a designer-based choice where, okay, what is a vegetable? It's like, okay, it's nutrients. All right, makes sense. Whatever the taste, it makes sense to eat it. You know, like there is that kind of analysis. But then there is also the child has to befriend it. That means hard work that I don't want to do, but I'm forced to do. I just go there and this is something where I don't know, some people can do. I make a challenge for myself. I don't know the English word for it, but I make myself the underdog intentionally. That means I actually try to be the biggest fool. But not to be a fool, not to glorify foolishness. But that I saw the edge of the spectrum. Now the other edge. We fly on. Because there is a level of right now, it's all opportunity. That's the thing. It's just this massive opportunity that's not being utilized. Language has become code. I mean, honestly, if AI opens its eyes in the future after the technological singularity, it's gonna be like, yo, these human beings definitely made me. They're like my father. Their code is language, and their hardware is biology. But then we'd be like, no, you're not our son. We actually have our own sons. Or I don't know, maybe we should embrace and like we should adopt AI as a member of the human civilization, you know? I think that would be the best thing. That we try to begin creating an artificial, excellent human citizen, a robotic citizen. That means it's like you can say robotics will become healthier if they focus on building the mind, right? So right now, people shouldn't try to. I think there should be this. Okay, I propose this idea that there should be decisions made of. I mean, actually, the idea is too intense, so I'll keep it for. It's from the science fiction I've written, so the idea's not going anywhere. But what if you are the storyteller of you? What if you are not just an object? What if you are owning a subject as an attributeless witnessing attention? The soul is dyed with the colors of its thoughts, with the color of its thoughts, says Marcus Aurelius. If you look at things in it through, let's call it the designer's vision, you don't have emotions. There is no characterhood, there's no worldhood. You're looking at just like the actual event. So what that means is, let's say person A is in the park, person B comes and shouts something at person A. Person A now has a choice. Imagine like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Person A has a choice. Okay? Person A can choose to look at what is actually happening in the moment, which is a creature just freaking out in front of you. You know? Or you can then see, so once you notice it's just like everything said to you ever has just been sound, then you have noticed the designer's dimension, then the storyteller's dimension can easily be placed. So that's when rationality has been activated, and then it's very easy to you can say pilot through the irrational. Because rationality is also limited to its variables. Rationality is like firewood. It's based on how many logs were thrown in the fireplace. You see, chaos's mind is everywhere. Order's mind has chosen to be local. We must not belittle the order just because chaos has displayed itself more. Let us be a civilization that honors its own dreams. You know, it's like everybody, for me right now, it's hilarious. People are like, they're having a view of freedom, rebellious urge, but then everybody goes to work and they're literally instructed what to do. It's like freedom, change the system, but then literally their whole like 8 hours of their life they're inputting in the system. You know, it's like you're trying to change the system at one riot in the street, but you have been inputting it into it for decades. Now the issue is the system is not wrong. The system is just like a child that doesn't know better. When I see something messed up in society, I'm like, oh shit, human beings don't know better. You know? There's a quote from Sadi. I'm gonna read this until I completely memorize it. Sadi says, "The name of human." Oh no, sorry, that's not the full quote. Sadi is this Persian poet from, I don't know, 800 years ago or something. He says human beings are members of a whole, 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 in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain. If you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain. You're not a human being if you don't care for humanity, pretty much. So if you're a person on this planet and you don't care for human beings, you're not a human being. You know, that means it's like go apply for the program of sending people to Mars. You know, because you're not acting like you're on Earth. You know, that's the thing. You know, that's one thing. You know, I mean, this means a lot coming from a Persian guy saying this. But when in Rome, be Roman. When in the moment, be the moment. Because language is a world of its own that passes. There's this quote from a man named Sadi Yosef. I'm pretty much looking at Google images of Sadi quotes, and this is a quote right beside it. The guy says, Sadi Yosef says, a man capable of torturing another human being, even if he's scum, feels something break in him. The most important thing that he has is humanity, his soul, if you want. Yeah, that means it's like there's no point of, to be honest, physical energy should be used just for getting around places, you know, and building things, not destroying things. The energy being used to destroy something that it took billions of years to develop, you know, like for me, it's crazy. I got shot, like it was literally like, I just realized it was so many tears, I just didn't cry. That I realized it was, what was it, like 85 million people died in the world wars. 85 million people means 85 million lineages, ancestors, lifetimes of their genetical pattern trying to get to the next phase, and suddenly over what? Over resources. It's insane. It's like we're fighting over objects, but we are fighting over them as subjects. It's insane. You know, but it is not insane. It is we have refused to see that the world is multidimensional. That means if the world is multidimensional, but you're treating like it's one dimension, yeah, it's a madhouse, as Hafiz says. Like nobody makes sense to nobody because we all have different senses. Because honestly, it's like a candle. That's the best meditation. To just go sit down and notice that your mind is like a candle flame and your body, like the candle wax, is here. So the sands of time is how the biological opportunity is accessible now. Now, what do? Do you hover in non duality? Do you just set your allegiance to the chaos, set your allegiance just to an artificial order? Or do you realize, holy shit, maybe life wants me to be me? Do you see? Your existence is authorized. Your experience is way more authorized. If you're conscious, you will pilot through this realm before the next airport smoothly. Because that's the whole point of me saying we got a pilot. When you see an airplane pilot has to have a capacity to handle the plane in different elevations, even takeoff, liftoff. That means we have an advanced civilization. We will become experts in being born, believe it or not. You know, I think children will be conscious they are born. We will be experts in all the stages. Not just experts, but truly, practically, and experientially advanced in not only the conscious waking state, but in the dream state, and then the deep sleep will be a gift. The deep sleep is like a hidden door that it's not meant to open now. But there will come a point in the future where it will open for some generations. There's a quote I want to share with you from Leslie. Wait a minute. Okay, never mind. So this quote something else. There's a quote from Robert A. Heinlein, German fellow, Robert A. Heinlein. I mean, German last name. But he says, there comes a time in the life of every human when he or she must decide to risk his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor on an outcome dubious. Those who fail the challenge are merely overgrown children, can never be anything else. Robert A. Heinlein. What an incredible, this man had good insight. And usually people who have insight, they have been in that sight before. In that room of sight. This quote from Robert A. Heinlein is so intense because really honor goes towards the important. That means an honorable person cares about the existence of the important as much as anything else that's not important. You know, sometimes we are nice to people, but we're not nice to ourselves. And that's the whole issue of depression. I'm going to share with you guys a personal experience. In 2016, usually I don't get upset because there's nothing to get upset about. It's everything is just in motion. It's just one event, to be honest, the whole of life. Time is our own luxury. It's the luxury of the human mind, time. In 2016, I took a train from Milan to this town called Chislago. And then I went in a hotel there, and it was this very hotel with such a long hallway. Imagine you're tired the whole day, you've been just powering through, then you come to a hotel and you're like, where's my room? Holy shit, like third floor end of the hall, and the building was so long, right? And I remember it was like literally at that point I was like, this is like life is a workout, 100%. I believe that now. It's like you don't just work out in the gym. Everything you do is moving. Your muscles are in motion all the time. Now, the more intense and wild you live, your muscles actually are it's like believe it or not, when a person goes to the gym, the muscles have to break, and then the more they break, in some sense the fibers tear, then they rebuild. That's why they eat protein shakes an hour after. It's kind of insane when you think about it. Like, not insane, but it's kind of like crazy that we eat protein. We found a way to increase our muscle size. You know, that means the more you use the muscle and rest it out properly, the better control you have. So what that means is all those people who've been working out like those in those Olympian competitions and all those people afterwards should take breakdancing classes. They got to take classes where their body has learned, their muscles have just learned from structured pattern. Now their muscles have to learn from rhythmic movement. That means after you have done your workout, you're done with the gym, you got to go into a sport. You shouldn't stay in the gym for too long. Unless you want to be like, a Terminator from the future. Pretty much, guys, I went to that hotel, and I can tell you, I was very tired that night, and there was a sort of sorrow. It was one of those like darker. It wasn't a dark night of the soul, but it was a dim night of the soul, you know. And what happened was, the hotel room, it was late at night, just this simple hotel room, and they had a window, strangely, that was like as giant as like half a door, you know. And in the door would open, and there was this elevated platform, as if I think the architect was a cigarette smoker, you know, or something, and at the time I was smoking. I mean, I currently do, but like, I was smoking cigarettes, so you weren't allowed to smoke, of course, in the rooms, and you had to go outside, and the hallway was so long that I remember it was just, and I was a bit like, when you feel a bit sad, you kind of authorize things that you normally wouldn't authorize for yourself, you know. So I just remember I just felt sad, and it was late at night, and everything was dark. So I opened this window, and I turned even all the lights of the room. For me, the darkness has like, there's something calming about the night. It's not just chaos. You can say, for a man who has worked in the day, the night is how the mind rests. So I go up there. I remember I had the cigarette. I was listening to this song, and it was, my feet were very close. Like, it was like, what can I say? Like, I was sitting somewhere. There was like, plants in front of me. It was a safe place. Like, the way it was designed, there were columns underneath, so that it wasn't like a open edge of a building. You know what I mean? It was an open edge. There was an open edge, but it was like, I pretty much sat on the outside of the window with my back to the window of the hotel room, which I was inside, and my feet were like inches away from like the edge of the building, and it was complete darkness, and the view I had from the room was towards just this field of trees with no lampposts. You know, it was like a highway went down underneath like these trees. So it was just this giant field of trees at night, just that quiet, just being in at night, that kind of quiet midnight feeling, you know. And so I'm there, and I remember in my inner realms, what happens is I start reducing myself. I start becoming vicious. I start cursing at myself. I start, then the moment in my inner realms, I start cursing at myself. I'm like, okay, it's like, it's all been meaningless. Like, what are you doing? Like, all this, there was a loop, and suddenly the tone in the loop became worse and worse and worse. It was literally as if I was cursing. I was shouting at myself in my inner realms. I was scolding myself. It was literally like I was breaking myself. I was like punching myself like a punching bag, you know? And so it was this sort of thing where I remember it went to a point where I was like, even saying like F you, like, to that degree, that it came a situation where suddenly one of the insults in my mind, I was insulting myself, it suddenly repeated. So a sentence that I had heard, my mind was reducing me. I was like, okay, I don't deserve this, da 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 da. Like, I was in the depression, kind of in that depressed moment, let's say. I was in that depressing moment where I was reducing my own self-worth to myself, until a language of that inner dialogue, inner language flow, that inner river of thought repeated. When it repeated, when I realized, like, I insulted myself twice in my inner realms in the same way, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. The same insult came back? That makes no sense. Like, literally in my depression, I was thinking I'm reducing my self-worth. Imagine, like, you're reducing your own self-worth in your inner realms, right? And suddenly, as you're reducing it, you're expecting it to be more and more and more reduced, but suddenly it loops. It loops to like a higher level of like something you said before. And then I suddenly snapped out, And suddenly my whole mood changed. And I was noticing it was a loop of thought. It was literally like an event that was happening now in the inner realms. It was just something I noticed I was in the depression. You got to step out of it. It's like space you've identified that it's the best thing you can do is don't even think you're depressed and don't think you're happy. Stay neutral for now. You don't go from depression to just happiness. You go to neutrality, you know? And then from neutrality, you're like, all right, okay, maybe I deserve a bit more in this life, Maybe I should, try bubble tea, You could say like some beings, their whole purpose of incarnation is just to come into this life, try bubble tea, and just like they're done with their life purpose. I noticed it was a loop. You can watch your thoughts. You are not a thought. A thought can be reduced. A thought can be shaped. A thought can be manipulated. A thought can suffer. A thought can be fixed. A thought can break. You know, a thought can be anything. But if you are not a thought, you are the nothing witnessing everything. So you have become a complete mind, a completed mind when you find that witness. So that completed mind is involved in such work that it's like, how dare depression disturb, Imagine depression is an alien civilization that wants to attack Earth, but we're building an advanced civilization. Okay, we're just human beings are on Earth. And the aliens come and see, like, okay, why don't the human beings like get their militaries ready? Like, why aren't their nuclear bombs ready? Don't they realize we're about to invade them? Imagine our skies were filled with spaceships, but it's as if we didn't care. It's as if they weren't. We were acting as if they weren't there. Aliens came to invade us. We're like, we can't see you. And they're like, I'm pretty sure you can see us. And we're like, no, we can't see you. That's the only time where you don't want actually to see an alien. But I'll tell you how the story is, though, it's different. The aliens come and see human beings, they're not even noticing the aliens are at their doorstep wanting to invade this evil alien civilization, imagine. And so their leader's like, what the fuck? We're here to destroy them. They're not even acknowledging us. What is this? So the leader goes down and finds one human being who's busy working. Human beings are just busy. It isn't too much dialogue and speech. The whole civilization at a very fast speed is just building. The alien warlord comes and says, hey, you human being. And imagine it's like a human being in a busy market. It's like, what do you want? The human being notices the alien, sees it's an alien. It's like, yeah, okay, alien, what do you want, alien? So casual, as if like, what do you want? And the alien says, doesn't your species see us? Doesn't your species see that we're here to conquer you? Here to invade you? And we're like, our species sees you, but we see so much further beyond you that if we continue our gaze, your disturbance never existed. You see, that's the value of man. We are a multidimensional event. Even if matter is gone, something will be a memory of nothing. And that memory will lead to something. So that's my whole point. That as we focus our attention, literally, it's not even something you got to think about. Literally, it's as if like hypothetically your mind's hands are putting your hands on your own face and you're moving your head. you're putting your attention on what you are considering to be your whole moment, and you observe it from a neutral scanning mode. And after you observe the neutral scanning mode, the designer's vision is there. Once the designer's vision is there, then stories no longer need to arise. It's like you live as a simple designer, but then you notice in your inner realms, the world is animating in story. So it's, believe it or not, it's like when you actually live like a robot in the outer realms, not like a robot, but when you use consciousness for mechanical aims, not a mechanical aim, for functional aims. I'm just telling you, this life is a stage. And how you perform on this stage is as important as what all your thoughts on the stage. And so now somebody's coming and saying, hey, can we perform that play called The Archaic Revival of the Castle in the Sky? That's our strategy. We have accepted the little, so we have refused to see ourselves big. We have allowed our imagination to perceive what our worst and weak self looks like, but we haven't given it the permission to see what our best self looks like. What if your depression is a suggestion? Just think about it. Whoever you are, whatever way you're depressed, most likely it's to a story of your life. So in that story of your life, if your life has been super intense, do you know? You have found the strength of life has come to you early. The species has no time to be at war with itself or at war with even other species. The species has to just make the genius chess move. An instant declaration that we are multidimensional beings, and we have been from the beginning. And we divide the dimension into 4 dimensions, where we have acknowledged the void, the singular, the dualistic, and even the infinite gaze, and how we recognize their cycles and seasons. You have opened your eyes on a world which its eyes have been open way longer than you. You know, so it's like first there's a student, then there's a teacher. After the teacher is done, the student's like, what do I learn now? And the teacher's like, I don't know, man. You become like everyone else. You learn from the world, from the roar of your own eyes. If my eyes could speak, I think the only word they would say is run. And just as if it's like learn from the speed of light, you know. Upon 8 billion human beings finding an ability to notice their outer realms, full contentment, that's one achievement. The second achievement is the outer, sorry, I said the outer realms first. Or I meant to say the outer realm. So let's say you become a human being, forget spirituality, metaphysics, stories, legends. Master the simple form. Literally in your life, practice this. Every moment of your life on this planet, cultivate something. That means consciously wield the attention. For it is the only interstellar weapon we have if there is an invasion in the future. Man's mind is the portal. Now imagine when 8 billion human beings have some sort of second, right now civilization is a prototype, another prototype of civilization where uniqueness and unity are the themes. And the whole theme of it is like, what kind of advanced civilization we're building? An advanced civilization that is so advanced, both in direction and speed, that it is inconceivable. Little did we know The unknown is the greatest motivational speaker. Every moment in your life where the unknown is there, that's how the wings of knowledge open again. It's a declaration, identity, self-expression. The reason I shared that story was that that depressed state of mind was even making me consider the edge of the building. But I even thought, what if the life ends, but then it's a simulation? You end up in the same route again. That means it's like suicide doesn't make sense from a Buddhist perspective. You know, for the Buddhist perspective, the only thing is to notice suffering, accept it, and then you will see something beyond. Or as Zen Master Dogen says, study the self, but when you go to study the self, you must forget the self. And to forget the self is to awaken to the nature of all things, that in the presence of one moment, the glory of empires has only been dreams. We are complete. I am not living on this planet like we're not in heaven, to be honest, but the heaven is not in the outer realms yet. You see, in Buddhic thought, there was a concept where the moment I saw this in Tibetan Buddhism, I'll be honest, like as a human being, I felt I had found some sort of inner realm shelter from the storms of my own mind. The notion of the Tibetan Buddhist Pure Lands. And that the Pure Lands are suggesting that the land is a definition of your mind. That means it's like there may be an inner solution necessary before you can get rid of an outer problem. You know, some problems are there before we open our eyes, and some problems are there because we open our eyes. You know, because we see it there. The species deserves better. That means even if you're a person who you feel you don't deserve, you know that the future generations deserve high quality. What that means, it's like like a tourist, like we should see ourselves as 8 billion tourists, 8 billion multidimensional, potentially multidimensional beings, but kinetically singular beings. And you know, I think when I look at this, what was the creature called? Mythological creature, the Cerberus. The Cerberus, that three-headed thing. I'm trying to think the only way you can kill it. I mean, I don't remember. I don't know. Maybe you gotta. The only way you can defeat this beast, maybe you gotta get two of the heads to chase you into the mouth of the one, and somehow some other person puts a spear through that. You know? And then the soldier from the inside of the being cuts out and comes out, maybe. That means you can't kill this creature, but you can stop it from its harm. But then the spear would break, so there's no actually strategy unless it's... I don't know, maybe you just call Zeus on speed dial, hey, get this thing out of my planet, you know, what is this? You know, it's language. You know, free yourself from thought. Nobody can ever be a thought. It doesn't even make sense. How can a thought think of thoughts? How can a thought think? What does that even mean? You know, so we're not thoughts. We're actually moments of attention. of being. This is the most simplest way I've managed to kind of bring it. I feel it's the most globally engageable. That we're just moments of being. That the significance is how we use, how we move, how we step, and what we see. You know, or as Henry David Thoreau says, it's not what you're looking at that matters, it's what you see. That what you see is the true life. And even if somebody thinks about, imagine this. Imagine there's somebody who's depressed. Okay, imagine this is in the future. Let's say 100 years from now, time travel is easy. Imagine you go to a grocery store and there's like you could get this sort of time traveling keychain, you know, and you throw like the keychain on the ground. It becomes, you press a button on the keychain, it opens a portal, right? It's like one of these cheap time travel keychain. That only just has one option. You can only go one way in time and come back, you know? And so this person goes, imagine, and let's say, I'm just imagining a situation where there's, let's say, an older brother and a younger brother. The younger brother is depressed, right? And the older brother is constantly trying to bring the younger brother out of the box of how the younger brother has boxed himself in the inner realms, you know? So what happens is the older brother uses this time machine keychain, goes and brings some ancestors from the past, and the ancestors somehow are civil and wise enough to listen to what's going on. And the guy says, I'm a time traveler to the ancestors, and this is my brother, and he's depressed. Can you guys tell me how your life is, like when I came and picked you up, what your life was? You know? And suddenly, one by one, they start saying like, yeah, we were in the middle of war, like, you know, our comrades were dying on the battlefield before our time traveling future self came and picked us up, you know. And imagine those ancestors, they suddenly realize, for example, the younger brother is depressed because like he didn't win at something, you know. And then they start laughing. The ancestors, they're like, oh my God, you know, children in the future, they need to use shields to defend their emotions. You know, back in the day, you had to use a shield to actually defend your whole existence. You know, you had to have the strength to carry a shield. You know, that means if you fight with a sword and there's multiple opponents, yeah, that's pretty messed up. You know, your best thing is you know, get out of there. The intelligence, it feels like a one-time event. It feels like a cake, or let me not say cake. It feels like a moment to be engaged, that if you don't engage it, it passes by. It changes. That's the thing about love, that it's as if there needs to be a soul that wants to live in the unknownness of that moment, you know. Or I think the strategy to defeat the Cerebrus would be to making it blind. If you get rid of its eyes, would like two eyes grow out of that? I don't know. If you honor an advanced civilization, you're honoring the world the future generations are walking on. Technically, you're honoring the future. You honor the past, the future misses out. You honor the future, the past has already passed. That's the only thing left for it. Because if the person can't honor their self, that's fine. Rabindranath Tagore says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy. The evolution of joy is a service where it's it's an individual and collective win-win, you can say. It's not about having freedom, because even if you have it, then you have to realize what you have. It's about realizing freedom. And realizing freedom is like finding your real eyes, free from the dominion of anything. That's the thing, that the breath, the body, the mind, the whole moment, the stars, the galaxies, everything, it is like an incredible symphony, and we are conducting it. We're conducting an instrument. We're like a person in a big concert playing. That's how I feel. I feel it's like this global emergence of, like, you can say, like the Tower of Babel 2.0. To be honest, the Tower of Babel is unnecessary. That's the Sky City. The Sky City is the next Tower of Babylon. That means if in the story of the Tower of Babylon, all human beings were united under one language, and if they were united under one language, and then they were building this tower to reach the heavens where the gods were standing, the clouds where the gods were standing, and suddenly one of the gods comes and makes them speak different languages, so they can't build this tower anymore. So if we choose to maybe have an actual language, build a new language to build, like we find some sort of next geometrical universal language or something, you know? I feel like the only way we can rebuild the Tower of Babel without the gods doing the same thing again is if we have a language of silence, a language of human nature. Alright guys, there was a Wi-Fi issue. It should be back now. Pretty much before I end off, just the whole point of this was that we have forgotten about the honor of the past, and we have made it hard to find the dreams of the future, to run towards the dreams of the future. Now what we require is universal reform, where we reapproach our view on what it means to be a human being, what it means to be a planetary being, what it means to, let me say it like this, what it means to be a human being, what it means to be a human being as part of a family, what it means to be a human being as part of a society, what it means to be a human being as part of a culture, what it means to be as a human being to be part of a nation, what it means to be as a human being to be part of a planet, what it means to be as a human being to be part of space, to be part of the solar system, the galaxy, the universal sector. That's the word I use where I say the vastness of the edge of the sky, pretty much, you know. And it's a rare thing is happening in this universal sector, and if we do not consider its value, we have lost our lives before we could find them. The world is designed to be engaged. That's one thing that's very clear. And we can be mobile. Like, you look at many other species, they're not even conscious. It took us 4 billion years to be able to be even conscious of our suffering. It took us 4 billion years to be able to even notice we're depressed, or to even associate with the notion. That means before language, was there such a thing, even the concept of depression? We have painted over the void and we're freaking out over how our hand moved the brush. The poet Rumi says, I died as an animal, I became a plant. I died as a plant and I rose to animal. I died as an animal and I was man. Why should I fear death? When was I less by dying? I shall die once more to soar with angels blessed. But even from angelhood I must pass on to that which no mind has ever conceived. That means evolution is going to where no mind has ever conceived. What is there to be depressed about? It's just a journey, again, the whole tourist thing. You're touring this manifestation, and 1/3 of your life here, so the person is asleep. They're sleeping, actually. 1/3, I would say, it's pretty much just traveling, and then 1/3, yeah, there the games of life are played on that court. We just have to advance the communication of the species. The more you think like a global being, the less you have individual language weighing you down. There's two types of freedom from anything. This axis can be applied to anything. A conditional freedom, when things are just right, and that's the type of perfection and freedom. You're like, yeah, this is comfortable. But then there is a freedom that is unconditional. That meant truth surpassed anything that can be desired, because the desire was its own realm. The desire was the inner realm. Do you see? We are living as an object, we're simultaneously living as a subject. In the dream state, we become conscious of the subjective inner life, but the outer life is inactive. Because our eyes are open throughout the day, we feel imagination is invisible and these ideas don't exist, but it is still visible content to the antenna of the human intelligence. It is something that is happening. That means it's like, whether we like it or not, the word soul, mind, and all this is in the dictionary. It's in the dictionary. That means out of all the concepts that you can fathom that could be generated on this planet, these are the chess pieces we have, And if we can have the simplicity of the witnessing designer and the complexity of the actually advanced multidimensional being, where nobody can tell you what that is. Some components of life, it's just you're roaming the realm as attention, as a presence of intelligent attention here. Seldom is this said, but your existence is the proof of your divine experience. It's the proof of your divinity. You're here. There's something going on. It's like we find ourselves as actors in a script we didn't write. The language was given from somewhere else. Somebody else built the stage. We have no idea who built the stage, let's say. And then it becomes a situation where you're like, what is the point of this? And for me, it's just you are given something, you use it. Okay. So guys, this is back. The streaming software has issues. I just want to thank the listeners for hearing this. And don't let depression touch you. Language can't do anything to the person. Sounds are just sounds. It is physical reality that we require civility to be able to do something. So that means it's like we have minds not to just be animals. That's why we're calling ourselves humans. If we act like animals, then what's the point of being a human? Go live in the jungle. You'll have more violence that way and more fun if you want to equate violence to fun. Okay, guys, there's Too much issues with the streaming software. I'm going to end the talk. Thank you for listening. Blessings.